The reason why we have a constitutional crisis is because the state legislators were bullied into making changes, and now we're complaining about voting rights when we have 17 days of early voting in all these states. It's nonsense. There's no limited access to voting, and this was a bully play.
Let me give you some facts about voting. Let me give you some facts about the actual bill itself. So let's go to Senate Bill 202, which is your Georgia restrictive voting bill. Here's what it does. Here's the restriction it creates.
Is it restrictive as New York's? Who are the people? Who are the big corporations who have pulled out of New York?
Okay, so I'm talking about Senate Bill 202. Michael, I'm talking about Senate Bill 202. And let me explain to you and everyone who's watching where the restrictions came in, since you think there were no restrictions in these state bills. Not only did it make it an actual crime to hand someone food or water without them campaigning whatsoever, it made it a misdemeanor offense, punishable by 1 year in jail. You as a person that's damn near libertarian, if not all the way libertarian, should appreciate the fact that we don't need extra laws on the book to regulate something that's already regulated. It is already illegal to electioneer on the precinct ground. That's already against the law. You don't need to also make it against the law to not be involved in electioneering and to hand somebody water. So I think you and I would agree that should not have been part of Senate Bill 202. Beyond that, another restriction that it created is it de facto eliminated Sunday voting. Souls to the polls, utilized primarily by black churches on Sunday. It was a ministry and civil engagement operation. But the Senate bill said you got to do one or the other, either Saturday or Sunday, rather than allowing Saturday and Sunday to be decided by each county. Also, it takes away the ability of the local Board of Elections director to oversee campaigns if the state legislature decides to appoint their own superintendent. I thought Republicans were for localized government and less government intrusion. However, that bill specifically creates government intrusion, takes away local control from the 159 counties in Georgia under Senate Bill 202. Those things have got to disturb you as a libertarian-like individual.
You know what disturbs me? HR 1 and CTCL and Zuckerberg's play. Where do you stand on those? Because I want to find common ground.
HR 1, I'm for it 100%. I think it's necessary to pass. What element of HR 1 are you against?
You want the mail-in ballot fiasco we had so that we can further undermine our elections?
How many people, what was the percentage of election fraud in the mail-in balloting system?
Well, that would require an actual examination of the fraud, wouldn't it?
That would require you actually looking at a fact or two. You are correct.
All right, and how do you feel about Zuckerberg spending 400 million on ballot drop boxes in Pennsylvania? You like that?
Yeah, I'm fine. As long as the drop boxes are certified by that county and that local government is able to secure those votes, those are American citizens voting and utilizing the convenience of a location in order to express their constitutional right in democracy. I'm good with it.
So you're anti-voter ID too, I take it.
Yeah, you know why I'm anti-voter ID? Fundamentally, you know why?
Why?
You ever ask somebody why? Do you believe voting is a right, Michael?
Yeah.
You do believe it's a right?
Yeah.
Explain this to me. In the United States, in most states, you can legally purchase a gun from a private owner without showing your ID.
They've changed that, not here.
Jess, I got you, but in most states, let me provide the context. Because we have deemed having a firearm is in fact a right. And you don't have to show the ID in order to purchase from a private gun seller. Also,
hey doctor, you ever gone bowling?
Oh, wait a minute, Michael, don't do that, brother.
You ever gone bowling?
Michael.
You ever gone bowling?
Michael, are you gonna let me finish?
You get the $4 rental of bowling shoes, you gotta have an ID. You leave the ID at the front.
Are you finished?
You need an ID.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead, cut his microphone. I'm gonna go ahead and make my point because there are some people actually care about the truth. Cut his mic.
Requiring people not have ID.
Okay, here's the reality. The reality is this. Every right that you have, your freedom of speech, your right to assemble, all of these rights do not require you to utilize your ID in order to exercise it. None of the rights require that. All of a sudden, you must present your ID in order to exercise your right to vote, when you do not need your ID to exercise any other right. The irony behind that is this: 20 years ago, nobody can hear you, brother. I cut your mic. 20 years ago, nobody in the United States of America had to produce an ID in order to exercise their right to vote. Nobody. It was a trick launched by the Republican Party in order to start massaging who voted, to start limiting who engaged in that process. All right, Michael, are you there? We can bring you back now. All right, let's unmute Michael. Let's unmute Michael. Michael, unmute yourself, brother. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
You muted me. I got to unmute myself.
Yeah, so I don't know why it works like that, man. But once again, go ahead. I'll let you get the final word. The show is about over.
All right. Well, look, the reason for having to show an ID is because the system gets abused if you don't. The system gets abused. One person, one vote. One person, one vote. It's fair. You need an ID for anything else. There's simply no logical argument.
You don't need an ID for every other right, brother. Quite the contrary. And remember, there's no statistical significance of voter fraud in order to warrant the constitutional intrusion of telling me I must present an ID in order to exercise my constitutional right. I appreciate you.
During the 2016 election, I had 4 Uber drivers who told me they were voting here in California, and then they were driving in Nevada to vote there.
Hey, man.
You know why that's possible?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to show an ID, and you don't have to show where you live. So I'm telling you, you're peddling nonsense if you're telling me that.
Michael, I cannot believe you would say anybody on this planet is peddling nonsense, sir. Come on, man.
There you go. You want my perspective? You got it.
Yeah, I damn sure did. We all got your perspective, brother. And I appreciate you for at least standing up for what you believe in, even if it is bat-ish crazy. I appreciate you being on Indisputable. Thank you, man.
Talk to you next year.